What's up, visual listeners? This week we are talking about the Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary announcements. Dragon's Dogma is actually getting a sequel, and will you be spending $70 on The Last of Us Part 1? This is the Replayer Podcast. Welcome to the show that once was about retro replay, but is now about video games and the people who love them. I'm your host, Dan Morris, aka Starkey Blavash. With me is Huggy Bear himself, Louis Reza.
Hi.
There's the hugs. The GM.
There's a lot of hugging stuff in so many.
I don't know how you feel about that, Erica. The GM stress, Erica Onduin.
That works.
Yeah,
That's a new one.
You like that?
It's a new one. I think I might like it. I'll have to think about it.
All right, I'll let you process it for a little bit.
I'll process it.
And the ever classic pocket ninja herself, Maria Kinnan.
Hey, Dapper Dan. Hey, everybody.
Dapper. Do I need to get some hair?
Yeah, you Dapper Dan, man.
I can teach you some good hair product styling.
I've got some hair products, but my hair is finicky. As you can tell, I've got a little bit of a puffball going on right now. A little bit.
That's why I wear hats. That's all I'm saying. You know this.
Yeah. We're not to get lazy. That's what we do. Before we get into this week's topics, I want to take a moment to just thank everyone out there for everyone's support. Thank you for following the podcast. Thank you for everything you've done. All those who've stuck with us throughout the years, especially now with us changing and transitioning with some new things we're working on, and the inevitable new show that's in the works. So thank you all so much for that, and checking us out on couchsoup.com, where you can read unfiltered pop culture articles and you can listen to our show. But you can also listen to our show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And please, we would really appreciate it if you went ahead and followed the podcast on Twitter, as well as our other respective social pages, because it would really help show us how much it means to you. It helps support the channel, and it makes all the future projects and plans even better. So please and thank you. Do that.
Do that.
All right. So, as I said at the top of the show, tonight's discussion is going to be about Final Fantasy VII Remake and all the announcements that came from the 25th anniversary celebration. The finally announced Dragon's Dogma 2. Which,
you're excited about that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I kind of lost my shit watching that preview. But before we get into that, will you spend $70 on The Last of Us Part 1?
Yes.
Remake.
No.
I might have already.
You might. What, you pre-ordered already?
Maybe.
Did you get the Firefly edition?
It was sold out by the time I went to buy it.
It was sold out. It was gone.
I was so mad.
Yeah, it was pretty fast.
Wasn't it like $100 as well?
Yeah.
Firefly edition? Yeah,
it was $100.
So I hope within the next couple, like a month or two before it comes out, hey, we happen to have a few more stuff.
What I don't get is, of that $100 edition, this is completely off book right now. It had a bunch of DLC for early access to stuff that you can get by playing the game anyways. Which I think
so it's early access.
But I hate that kind of stuff. You're going to charge me extra money for something I can get anyways.
That's true. That is true. I just want it.
All right, so let me get us started off with, as we know, a few weeks ago at the Summer Game Fest, it was revealed that Naughty Dog was working on a release of the remake for The Last of Us Part 1, and then it was built from the ground up for the PS5 to include advanced visual fidelity, integrated DualSense controller features, and they also say that it's going to have an overhauled experience for gameplay, controls, and new accessibility options. The package is going to include the Left Behind DLC, and it was set to be available in September for the said $70. But that's, again, is that worth $70? And this is where I want to get the discussion kicked off, and I'm going to start with Louis. What do you think, Louis?
My mic didn't cut off. I just don't want to answer.
I was going to say, if you're doing a bit.
Don't make that joke on a podcast, Louis.
Yeah. For you,
for those visual listeners.
Exactly.
Trickster.
So,
somebody is on the fence.
All right. Like, me personally, I'm probably eventually gonna get it. I don't really see why everyone gets all pissed off. If you don't want to spend $70, wait. Go play the one that you already have because you probably already have it. If you're pissed off about it coming back out for $70, you more than likely have it already. So just play that one until you are ready to play the updated if you ever want to. Most of the people that are complaining about it just don't get it. It's that simple. It's like we talked about this, like with the Ghostbusters movie with the women. Don't watch it. You don't have to spend money you don't want to spend. Don't just, it exists. Go to the one that exists already, and it's fine. I eventually am probably going to do it just so I can have the comparison because I'm like that. I want to personally know what the differences would be, but I'm also going to have my friends tell me all of that beforehand anyway. I bought Final Fantasy Remake on the computer because my PlayStation broke and I had to get that bitch for $70 anyway. Pissed me off, to be honest, but I didn't mind that it also came with Intergrade, which I had to wait on the PS5 if I was going to get it on the PlayStation. There was extra stuff that came with it. So, I mean, you kind of weigh out the options. Do you want to just hold on to the original? Do you want the upgrade? Is it worth it to you? Not is it worth it to everybody, because you can't speak for everyone. So to ask me, who loves The Last of Us, yes, I'm eventually going to get it. I don't know when, but it sounds cool to me because kind of like how stories work. The people that weren't born when it was there, now we're going to be able to play it. So give them a chance.
Well, I mean, you can still play it. The PlayStation 4 version works on the PlayStation 5.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's not going to look as nice, I think. Maybe.
It's true. That's why I stopped. I mean, look at the comparisons. It's insane.
Oh,
but,
sure.
That's the reason, because I'm playing it through again, and I heard this was coming out, and I was like, I'm gonna stop playing it right now because there's some stuff I kind of forgot it happened, and just kind of like re-experiencing it. And I'm like, why don't I just re-experience it at like this insanely beautiful quality? Of course, I'm gonna buy it because I love The Last of Us, and to me, it's worth it. And we all kind of knew video games were going in that $70 direction. I can see why, most of us
That's
kind
been
of
in the
assumed that.
talks though since the Xbox One and PS4 launched though.
And
And
yet
it's
here it
Sony
is.
that's pushing it. Sony's the one that's pushing it though.
Well, and
Because they
I can
need
see
money.
why. Yeah, they need all
Because
of
they
this.
need money. They're
Like,
broke.
they're so broke, guys. They
They
have a
don't make
GoFundMe.
headphones or movies or TV shows or TVs or they don't make
Yeah,
it.
they have no other industry but selling these scrappy little video games that are just
Scrappy little video
struggling.
games. They're struggling so hard. Go visit their GoFundMe.
I
Donate
mean,
what
they
you
had to
can.
cave and release a Game Pass style service because they just couldn't. They weren't selling enough video games. They weren't making enough money.
Okay, the Game Pass thing totally sucks on PlayStation, but that's a whole other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
sucks.
it is.
But I'm excited for it. I'll pay for it. Because that's who I am. I'm a sucker.
But answer the question: is it worth $70?
I would think so. Just because of looking at the comparison, especially between the original and this, it does look exactly like a complete remake. It looks like The Last of Us Part 2. And not only that, but I need to look more into this, but like the amount of resources and people it takes to do something like that seems monumental. And the reason they're making this such a big thing is because of the TV show,
Sure.
the HBO TV show. So as soon as these people see that show and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing. Oh, it's based off of a video game. Ooh, maybe I should look into it." Why not have the most beautiful, well put together, updated thing for this new person to come into to see? Wow, this is gorgeous. Oh my gosh, look at all these details. And they're like, "Oh, this has gone through a remaster and an original. I wonder what the original looks like." And they're like, "Holy crap, this is incredible." So it brings in a bunch of new players to experience the best of the best.
That's fair. I think that's a good point to make too, especially with the launch of the show. And it's actually, I was going to mention too, like Brian Altano of IGN wrote his article about the game being worth $70 as well. And he hits on that point too. He mentions that, the HBO show has this potential to bring a bunch of new people into the franchise. And what better way to do it than with a bright, new, shiny version of the game instead of telling people to go back and play the PS3 version or the remastered for PS4. So, yeah,
Exactly.
that definitely makes sense. Did you have other thoughts, Maria?
I don't think it's warranted a full price $70 for the game. I mean, it's not a remake. It's half a polished game. You know, like you pay $70 for a game that has a new story, new characters, a fully developed brand new game. The Last of Us, it's not a new game. It's not a remake. So it doesn't seem to warrant paying a full price
Visual
$70. Yeah, it's a visual remake, but it's an already amazing looking game that's just been polished. And you know, they were going to make a remake of Uncharted 1. That was the first one they were going to do. They were going to polish it up. They were going to optimize it for PlayStation 5. The reason why they didn't do it is because it was too much work. So they went for The Last of Us because it wasn't as much work. But they're still asking $70 for a game that hasn't been fully optimized. It's already a perfect, beautiful looking game. And I'm not against it. If you don't want to buy it, then don't buy it. But I would probably wait for it to come out lower. I just don't think it warrants the $70 price tag for something that's not a brand new game.
I can agree with
And
that,
it's incomplete, in my opinion, because it doesn't have multiplayer.
Yeah.
Not everybody's into multiplayer, but
yeah, but it's still a part of the original game. Even the PS4 remaster has the multiplayer.
That's true, it does. But I do agree with the $70 price tag. I think like they absolutely are pushing it with expecting all these new people to come in. They're like, oh, they've never played the game before. They're gonna get the nice and shiny. Make it expensive. It's all about money at that point, and that's totally fine. I would just buy it for $50 again. I think it's more like a $49.99 kind of thing, not a $70.
I was gonna say, I think I would have been happier if it was $50. $50, and I would have been like, all right, yeah, you know, it's an old game, but it's been updated. It's got some new visuals. I appreciate that. It's gonna have mechanics from like The Last of Us 2, which are amazing. Last of Us 2 has some of the best gameplay mechanics I've ever experienced. So yeah, okay, $50, cool. Or what I would like to see, and I'm hoping, is it goes into the PlayStation Plus. I know it's not gonna.
I was thinking about that because I was like this time next year or in the next 2 years, it's gonna be there because there's a bunch of stuff there that nobody expected to be there.
Sony should be be comparable to what Microsoft is doing, because Microsoft's putting all their day one releases in the Game Pass on day one. Sony should do a little bit of that at least. So
I agree.
I would be happier if The Last of Us Part 1 comes into the PlayStation Plus service and I can play it day one, because I'm paying you a massive chunk for a monthly subscription to play games.
$100 a year or something?
It's
130?
Depending on the tier. Like the one to be able to play those premium games, I believe, is the $15 a month.
I don't think I'm actually on any of the PlayStation like Pass stuff.
I am.
I think
I got rolled into it because I have Plus and Now, so I got rolled into.
Oh, I didn't have
Plus.
Now.
Yeah.
Interesting. Louis, you were going to say something.
I kind of miss the old days when there was this thing that you can do that was called proof of purchase. You get the little barcode on your game, you put it online, and then it's like, oh, by the way, here's a DLC that's only free for people who bought it at a certain time. And once you put it in there, it shows that you did that.
I used to hate that.
I love that.
Now, yeah, I used to hate that because I was like, I don't want to have to do all this work.
Now that's more of like a pre-order thing. If you pre-order it, you can get a couple of these like real cool things, but it's mostly cosmetics.
But what I'm getting at is, imagine if we can prove a purchase for the remaster, and instead of paying the full 70, you just pay $20. That way, you.
I mean, that's what they've done now
70.
with Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding. Like Ghost of Tsushima was the one that you paid to upgrade.
Oh.
But that's another thing. That's another counterpoint. Xbox, if this was an Xbox game, you would just get the new version. It would just be there. You would just it'd be smart delivered. That's what they do. They smart deliver the best version of the game. It's not an upgrade.
They did the optimization for Uncharted 4, and they didn't change the game, but they did like the polish up, and they did the frame rate and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was like $10, and you get a movie ticket, and you're like, all right.
That's the only reason I did it, because like, well, I'm gonna go see the movie anyways. Might as well get a free movie ticket.
Right.
See, but Dan, again, like now you're talking about a global machine like Microsoft going up against little, tiny,
That little
small,
scrappy.
They're just a little indie
locally
developer.
owned-
Leave them alone.
local family owned Sony Pictures. Sorry, not Sony Pictures. Sony technology. No, not technology,
Industries.
sorry. Sony,
So-
probably. I don't know anymore.
Here's a thought too, because we're going to roll into the next part of the conversation here soon, and that is I want to put up a mirror of The Last of Us Part 1 to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Look at how insane the Final Fantasy VII Remake is.
I have never played Final
That is
Fantasy,
the most worth $70 game in the world.
but it looks
That's a
so
remake.
pretty.
That's a
Bought it
remake.
twice.
Yeah.
That's
remake.
a remake.
A remake is you remade the game.
Yes.
So it's like, so for example,
what
if you
makes
make
a remake?
if you make a cake and you just scrape the icing off and put better icing on top of it, you haven't remade the cake. So
know,
if you
I have a
don't-
question. Do you think they called it remake because they've already done a remaster? Like, what else would you name it at that point if they've
a
already
cash
got?
grab?
This is a semantics thing, and I've gotten into this before on previous
I'm
shows.
curious.
Because a remaster is the original base game polished up and added new features.
Which is exactly
A
what they've already done.
remake is when you build the game from the ground up with all new everything.
Remade it.
So what should they call this next
Not a
Last of Us? Because
remake.
they
I don't
shouldn't
think
call
so.
it a remaster again.
2.5.
Like, yeah, but that doesn't sound as appealing.
Of
No,
course it
because
doesn't.
now you're jumping into Kingdom Hearts territory, okay?
Yeah.
They are the ones with the
2.5. 2.7D.
and the fourth to the second power.
Yeah. Okay, now is your guys' job
Pie.
to convince me to play Final Fantasy because I've never played.
All right, so
Convince me.
I'm not so big on Final Fantasy.
Louis.
As he pulls out the main
Many
character's sword,
capacity.
Erica, so that our visual listeners know what Louis is doing, holding a Buster sword.
So pretty.
I like it.
Okay, so before I don't want to move into Final Fantasy just yet,
Okay.
but
Fuck.
that's if you look at the thumbnail for this episode, I put Joel next to Tifa from those games. Now, again, this is one of the parts of this conversation is The Last of Us is only 9 years old. Is it old enough to be remade? I think
Yeah.
it can be. I think it could be, but I don't think they did it to the scale of what I consider to be a remake, especially in contrast to like Capcom. Look at Capcom and the way they remake their games. They
Yeah.
completely overhaul. There's entire new areas of the game. There's completely new elements. How much of The Last of Us remake is going to have that? I don't think it's going to have nearly as much because, like,
My fear is with the Last of Us is I'm going to play through it, and once I get past the initial, look how shiny it is. It's just the same
it's
game.
the same game.
Yeah.
Like they
What?
changed this puzzle to have a thing where I throw a wire over a thing so
Yeah.
I can pull myself up there like you do in The Last of Us 2.
Naughty Dog Yellow.
You can go
Follow the
prone,
color.
maybe. I don't know if they're going to let you be prone because that changes the entire level design
Yeah.
to be able to go prone.
At least
Well,
it'd be a
but-
remake.
That's another. You're bringing up a good point to counter your own point at this point, which is we don't know yet. We haven't played it. We don't know anything. It's like getting mad at like, did you see what they're getting for the next Batman? I don't
Oh
know.
my gosh.
I
And
was-
like people with Lord of the Rings right now, and they're like, oh, I hate this and this. And I'm like, stop saying that you hate something if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm going more off the initial impressions of like when I saw the trailer
Right.
for Resident Evil 2 remake, I was like, oh my God, like everything looks so different and new and like all this new angles and you can see the police station for what it is. Whereas The Last of Us, I'm looking at The Last of Us PlayStation 3. I thought it looked exactly the same until I looked at comparison shots.
That's a very good point, and I'm going to validate that point, but I'm also going to invalidate that point at the
Sure.
same time. So
Hit
first,
me.
the validation. When they are using their own previous footage to show the comparison, it might be a remake or a remaster. Sorry,
Yeah.
but again, I keep talking about my favorite personally, which was the first one. In my opinion, the first actual remake was Kingdom Hearts. And that's because they got the base game, they polished it up, and then they added
Hold
a whole
on.
bunch of
No,
new
I'm going to
shit.
cut you off on that, Louis, because what about Resident Evil's remake? The original GameCube, they rebuilt all of Resident Evil from the ground up. And
That's
when I
very
play Kingdom
fair.
Hearts, I can't tell the difference. I've played the original on PS2 and I've played the new like 1.5 version and it seems like the same game to me. I could not tell the difference.
The new levels, the new bosses, the new items,
But it's still
the new keyblades, the new. All I'm saying is, to me,
that's
the
just more
basis.
features. That's just
Yeah.
more.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what the basis was for me. That was the first time I personally saw a game that actually added a whole bunch of new stuff and completely overhauled like different characters. But you're right about the Resident Evil one. But the only reason I don't consider that a remake is because it was more, in my opinion, a reboot. I feel that one was completely rebooted.
How?
It wasn't the same mansion. It was
Yes, it was.
essentially the same story. I mean, the same name, but it wasn't like.
But the mansion had almost identical layouts. You hit the same story beats. It was the
No.
same characters. They added new areas. They added new elements, but the core mansion itself was more or less the same.
To me, that's like saying that the Suicide Squad is the same as Suicide Squad. No, no. One of them is great. The other's pretty good.
Oh
Well,
no,
not
I think the
Suicide Squad, Suicide
remake of
Squad.
Resident Evil is amazing, and the original Resident Evil is kind of dog shit, especially in retrospective now.
In retrospect, yeah, that's what I'm
But
saying.
they still have the core game is in there. If you watch the
Yeah.
Suicide Squad and then you watch Suicide Squad, there are no similarities between those movies. If you're using
Aside
that as
from
a
characters and
just
somewhat of plot
just
development.
characters, though.
But what I'm getting at is I don't consider it a remake because it didn't feel like a remake to me. I consider it a reboot. I know it's a remake and that's fine. And you're right, I fucked up on that part. But I just said that wasn't even like they're not the same. They are not the same. You're saying that it's the same layout. No, it's not. There's 3 stories as opposed to the 2 stories. There's this different place where you're going down this corridor as opposed to that corridor. More or less it's the same, but it was completely 1,000,000% different. Personally, on my perspective. That's why I say that the one that I thought was like, this is how you remake a game.
Okay, so this is what this is coming down to, Louis. I'm sorry not to cut you off, but I do want to move on. The core, what this is boiling down to is you and I have very different opinions on what a remake is.
Yeah.
So that's
I thought that was
you and I have
reboot
different
versus remake.
It's been
mental
casually
images.
fun to listen to.
Yeah, it was getting,
That'd be a good question for the chat. What's your definition for reboot and a remake? Come on,
Yeah.
comments below. Yeah.
Fight
I don't-
me.
Yeah,
I had
tell
a
us.
question. There was a recent Final Fantasy game that came out. What was
15.
it? 15? Is that what it was?
15, yeah.
My brother-in-law was
I mean,
playing
that was
one
the
not too long
most
ago.
recent mainline Final Fantasy.
Didn't the first part of the Final Fantasy VII remake come out?
Well, yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
Final
Yeah, but
Fantasy
that's not
VII
the one
remake.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, she's talking about the newest, next Final Fantasy,
Oh.
which is 15. And then,
So that
I
was-
assume.
16 is the one that's coming out next
Mhm.
gen. Well, this gen,
Holy moly, are we at 16 already?
Jennifer.
But how does
What I'm
one
saying
play
about-
this series?
You don't worry about it. They're all
Final
standalone
Fantasy?
games. They're all standalone games.
Oh.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have to
It
play them
is
in
not-
order at all.
It's not the MCU of games.
Why have I been stressing about that
So,
this whole time?
Each Final Fantasy is
idea.
its own Final Fantasy.
It's their own
Okay.
world. Their own
Where do I get
characters,
this
own
and how do I
plot.
play it?
15?
Anyways, I want to get us moving on
We'll
because
talk.
anything that relates to Last of Us usually devolves into some sort of chaos. But now I have a whole new beef with you, Louis, when you try to tell me you're
no.
thinking of what a remake is, because you are.
Calm down,
Probably,
boys.
that is-
Calm down.
But moving on, the next thing I want to dip our toes in, because I know it's not the biggest thing, it's important to me, so I'm going to talk about it and you're going to have to deal with it. Capcom finally, after teasing the shite out of me, revealed Dragon's Dogma 2, which, thank God, like, I've been waiting for that game for 10 years. I got really mad at Capcom when they did their showcase during the Summer Games Fest, and they said, "Hey, thanks for celebrating 10 years of Dragon's Dogma with us. We'll see you next time." And it's like, what?
It's like,
Thankfully.
excuse me?
They came back and they followed up with this video that did this really cool deep dive into Dragon's Dogma, how the game came to be, and then revealed, yes, we are developing a sequel. And I was like, I literally did like a little which I don't really ever get that excited. So it was fun for me to actually get excited about something. If you've never heard of Dragon's Dogma, if you've never played Dragon's Dogma, you really owe yourself, if you want a good action RPG. It was the game I recommended to people when they were done with Skyrim. Go play Dragon's Dogma.
It's pretty much on sale, like, everywhere. I got it
Yeah,
on
because they're
PlayStation for,
promoting
like,
the hell out of it.
$5, and I got on my Switch for, like, 3 because I had some credit, but it's, like, $10.
Yeah. So, if you guys have ever played Dragon's Dogma, or if you know anything about it,
I just barely started playing,
yeah,
obviously. I was actually really impressed, especially at the start, and watching some, like, beginning videos of, like, "Hey, here are some suggestions." The character creation,
it's great, isn't it?
it is one of the
So good.
best I've ever experienced, and the fact that you can create the look of your own pawn, which is kind of
Mhm.
like your buddy that
Your little
comes along with
sidekick.
you. Yeah,
I love it.
you create them as alongside of yourself. So it's like playing 2 different characters,
Yeah.
and then picking, like, your I think it's vocation, like, your
Yep.
class. I picked mage at first because that's typically what I do. I'm, like, a healer, I do mage stuff, but then, the pawn that, like, got assigned to me at the beginning was also a mage and did healing, and I was like, "I kinda wanna hack and slash a little bit more." So around, like, level 10, I decided to become, like, a almost like a rogue with
Is it the
dual wielding
Strider?
blades. Yeah, that one,
Yeah, the
the
Strider is fun.
Strider. And I was like, "Okay, I love this." And it was easy because I could just switch my class instead of it being like, "Hey, you picked a class, you can't change till, like, level 50." It's like, you can change whenever and however you want. And I lost all my money because all my gear was mage related and I'm broke, but so far it's been worth it. The story hasn't quite captured me yet, so I'm hoping it might
It
continue
picks up in the
to.
latter half of the game, for sure.
Okay, because it's kind of feeling lackluster, and I kinda, like, think about it, and I'm like, "What part of the story am I on?" I'm like, "I don't even remember."
Now, that being said, the one of the biggest pulls for me is more the gameplay and the action over the story itself.
Yes.
The gameplay
It
is
is
so good.
awesome. The
Have you fought any
gameplay is
big monsters
amazing.
yet?
Um, tried is more the appropriate word,
Ah,
right now. I'm only level 12. I came across, like, a lizard, like, a giant lizard. I fought one of them, and it took, like, a couple minutes, but I was like, "Oh, we did it!" And I go down.
was it like the lizard men that walk on 2 legs?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I walked down a little bit farther down this river, and there were, like, 6 of them, and I was like, "Guys, we're going, we're running, go away." And we ran away. But, I enjoy that I can run away from
I
monsters if they're
I
too
challenge
scary.
anyone who's played this game or not played this game to give it a go.
Yeah.
Fight a griffin, climb on a griffin, let the griffin
Oh,
fly into the air, and you're stabbing it in the head. And then you get the music swelling, and then the griffin goes plummeting down to the earth and crash lands as it's like the music is just like, ah! And you're just like, this is the most insanely epic fantasy experience of my life.
I guess I should turn the music back up then. The first thing I
It
do when
gets
I get
really
into
good.
games is I turn down the music really low because I love getting the ambiance of the world,
Hmm.
and I feel like I'm
I think the
distracted
game
by
does a pretty
music.
good job of letting the world breathe. It doesn't overwhelm you with music when you're like exploring.
That's good. Maybe I'll turn it back up. We'll see how it goes.
I'm a music guy. I like music.
I'm
I
not a music
can't turn it
person.
off.
Have you
In
played
fact,
any
if
Dragon's
a
Dogma?
game has bad music, I'm out. I can't do that.
Have
I
you ever
haven't.
played Dragon's Dogma?
No.
No.
I haven't, no.
All right. Well,
So,
anyways,
Just
it's
us.
great.
I recommend playing it, and
this is
I've
the
only been playing
greatest
for a
thing of my
couple of
life.
hours.
That sounds nice.
Well, that's just it. Is Dragon's Dogma came out at a time that it was very easily overlooked. And like I said, like a lot of times I was recommending it to people who had played Skyrim and they were looking for more like
Mhm.
RPG. And I said, play Dragon's Dogma, you won't be disappointed. It has so many deep systems and mechanics that no other game has. It was one of the first
Super
games that I
technical.
ever played that it mattered when you got wet. Like if
Hmm.
you get into
That's what she said.
water, you get.
Sorry.
Still
But
going up from last night. the game.
The game. I was playing a
Boy.
TTRPG. I was playing a game. Okay, we can move on now that we've
Don't-
explained
Yes, we
aggressively.
understand. But anyways, I also love that you can fight these giant monsters. You can climb on those giant monsters. The pawn system is great.
Mhm.
The story isn't the greatest, but then again, it's a Japanese team trying to tell you a tale that's set in like a fictional medieval setting. They do good. They do their best. They try it. They make it pretty interesting. There's a lot of like intrigue and like political backstabbing and weird craziness that happens. And if you watch the anime, they kind of do a lot of that in the anime. It's pretty fun.
I'm hoping somebody else has done this, but anytime I get an option to create a second character, I always make them look like my partner. And so my pawn looks exactly like my husband.
Fair. So it's the two of you questing together.
Yeah, it's
We're just over there
really
like,
cute.
no.
I like
No.
to do that.
Mm.
I make my characters look like me because it makes me feel like I'm enveloped in the game. The
I
short hair
don't
didn't
want
look great on my
anything
character,
else
but
in the universe looking like me. I want to save them that pain.
I'm just like super cute. So, oh my gosh,
Jesus.
my
I'm
hair and
not.
hair
So moving on.
I'm not cute, but I want my characters to look like I don't. Also, I
Yeah.
do tend to be like,
I
okay,
love
what's
having
the
my
hottest
characters look
option?
like me.
But also, like a last final thought for me going for like the new game, obviously it's going to be made with a much better engine behind it because I'm assuming they're
Mhm.
going to use the RE engine, which is phenomenal. Like the RE engine is so good. And
You
Dragon's
know,
Dogma, it doesn't look the greatest, especially now. It hasn't aged the best, but it's still a really fun
still
game
good.
to play.
It feels like a classic video game. I wonder if it's gonna look more like Dragon Age.
Mm.
I think because they're both very
I'm just picturing everything I've seen in the
visually
RE engine,
similar.
like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, the Resident Evil 4 remake. Those games are gorgeous, and I can only imagine what Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to look like. And I'm really excited to see how they push that genre because Dragon's Dogma to me is still doing its own thing that most
Yeah.
other games haven't done.
Do we have any idea what the next video game coming out that is using Unreal Engine 5?
I mean, lots of them. A lot of new games are using Unreal Engine 5. I couldn't tell you off the top of my
But
head what the next one is.
I don't
'cause-
think that they're too recent though, right? Like nothing. for the
Real
next few
Unreal
months.
Engine 5 came out not too long ago, but I bet like developers got it a
know-
There's a
long
lot
time
of
ago.
games that are coming out using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're on the Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they pretty
Okay.
much said that like every Xbox studio moving forward is using either id Tech or Unreal Engine 5.
Cool. I've been
So-
looking forward to watching stuff with Unreal Engine 5. It's gorgeous.
It's mind blowing. There was
Seriously.
a small tangent, but there's a video and it's
Yep.
a train station and
yeah.
the lights go off and it looks real and you're like,
Yeah.
So
"Holy
real!
shit." Yeah.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh. It's crazy. The
Sure.
evolution of video games is just now give us better stories.
Or every time I see a mod of that Matrix demo that they put out in Unreal Engine 5 and somebody
Yeah.
I haven't
mods it,
seen that
their own
one.
thing in there. Oh, it's great. Look for
Ooh, I'm gonna
anything
have
of
to
the
look up
Matrix
later.
Unreal 5 demo.
Ridiculous. That
Yeah.
would be scary.
Matrix.
Anywho, let's move on to the really big thing to come out, I think, for some people at least, is the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII, which by many is considered to be one of the best JRPGs of all time. I already see Lou is getting a bit excited. I personally have played a lot of Final Fantasy VII, but I never finished the original. I'm still making my way through the PS5 version of Final Fantasy VII Remake. But we got some really interesting announcements. Remake Intrigate is coming to Steam. They had a bunch of Final Fantasy VII swag for sale at the Square Enix store. Some new updates for the First Soldier mobile game. And a new look at the Ever Crisis trailer, which I honestly forgot that game was being made, and I thought it had already come out. It's like a mobile version of Final Fantasy VII, like the Pocket Edition of Final Fantasy 15, right? Essentially. But they also announced a remake of Crisis Core, and it's coming to every platform. A Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy VII, to
I
every platform.
I worry about such detailed high resolution games going to Switch.
It probably
the
won't do
Switch will
well.
melt. Yeah.
Most
It
of the
just-
games that
it
like that
just-
get streamed. They don't run inherently on the software
Yeah.
or on the
'Cause, like,
hardware.
Yeah, so I guess that would be the only benefit really for Switch because it just gets bad.
I still can't believe though that they announced a Final Fantasy VII game is coming to all platforms, and then right behind it they're like the next Final Fantasy VII remake game, PlayStation 5 exclusive, and it's like,
Yeah.
what?
Why?
What? Why?
Why?
Thanks,
Yeah,
Tony.
and Louis
You know, it's,
can't play.
I can't even fucking play it. I'm good.
So to round it up, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to be the next part 2 in the Final Fantasy VII remake series, and they did say the third game will round out a now decidedly trilogy. Louis, I know you're probably sitting there like, yes, go, let it rip, Louis, let it rip.
Go,
Let's
Louis.
hear it.
Blah.
Blah.
Yeah, like oh my god. I when I first saw the first trailer or the teaser, little 5-second cloud, I fucking cried. I'm not even holding back on that. I full on, not like bawled or anything, but I absolutely was tearing up because it means so much to me. It's one of the stories that got me into writing. honestly, right? Like I want to do novelizations, I want to do all this kind of stuff because it was so impactful to me to see a story that was that incredible, that huge. And even then, the translation wasn't all that great. And it's nowhere near the level that it has come to this day. And I was worried because I remember hearing that they were saying it's probably going to be like 5 or maybe even 7 Final Fantasy 7 remakes coming out.
Yeah.
And so when they were like, oh, by the way, it's only going to be 3, I'm like, huh? I get to live to see the end again? Yeah. Like, I have my gripes with it. I'm not, Remake wasn't perfect by any measure. Personally speaking, one of my favorite qualities of the original game is, and Erica, if you get a chance to play this, try it. Notice how they introduce Sephiroth. And it's Sephiroth. Not Roth. Everyone says Sephiroth. Sounds like some kind of creamy
song. It's Sephiroth.
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 Sephiroth. It's Latin. Anyway, because that annoys me. So anyway, I'm choking up. I can't talk.
Which game is
personally, this is Final Fantasy 7.
This is 7.
Yeah. I didn't like how they kind of really pushed leaning into Sephiroth for the first iteration for the remake. I liked not knowing anything about this guy. They just mention him in passing, and then all of a sudden everything turns toward him, which the remake decidedly didn't do at all. So I feel like you get robbed of this really good opportunity to introduce such an iconic character. But that being said, it was still a great freaking game. Like we were talking about how remakes and reboots and all of that. That one, Dan, you and I can agree, 1,000,000% absolute remade from the whole process from the bottom up. I don't care that Cloud was running around doing errands for kids. It was fun. All right.
I'm questioning your logic about the storytelling, because I feel like the Final Fantasy VII remake storytelling is a different story than the original game.
I think I got it.
Very
I think I heard
skewed.
it originally. I think like while we were talking about it, I think that I originally heard that Resident Evil was a reboot when I was a kid. I think that's what I heard. So I never got it out of my head that it's a reboot. It's a reboot. It's a reboot. So now that the remake and the reboots and the remasters and the this and that and the huns are all very categorized, it was easier for me to accept that this is a remake and to see it for what it was. I really liked it, but I also understand how stories work. So I don't mind that they changed a whole lot, because now I don't know what the hell to expect, which is
right.
the point
I
of
knew
playing a new
nothing
game.
from that trailer for Rebirth. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm seeing.
I think I know, but I also absolutely don't, and so I'm very excited. That's the last thing I ever want to see.
Alive? Spoilers.
I don't want to know anything else. Stop ruining it for Erica.
I will forget all of this. Don't worry.
Okay.
Let's do a Let's Play playing Final Fantasy VII.
Please. It is so good. It is so good. But original. Yeah. You have to play the original, Erica.
The first Final Fantasy VII?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a tall order.
So janky.
It's a tall order. I'm still trying to make my way through the original. Still.
I'll probably wait for the
I get lost
remake.
in the original hard. Like, I don't know where I'm going.
And I could try and play it live so you can live vicariously through me.
It is. I want to see someone that I know likes a lot of the same things for the same reasons that I like to experience this as an adult. Because as a kid, mind blown. Like,
okay.
I'm telling you, it's what got me into, I need to do this. I need to write stories. I need to create worlds. I need to make everything matter.
Is this the one that's so exclusive to PS5?
No.
Final
you're
Fantasy?
talking about the remake.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy VII's on everything now. The original's on everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so they look like little cubes. They do not look pretty.
Little blocks.
You have to read.
I have such a hard time with games like that. Mainly because I didn't grow up playing video games, and so none of that just like feels natural.
I don't think that you will, honestly. It's that good. Personally speaking, and knowing you, knowing what you like, I think you're going to enjoy it.
Maria, have you played any Final Fantasy games?
Yes, I have. I played 7 and I played 8. So I played 7 not when it first came out, but I had a friend who was hardcore into Final Fantasy 7, and I kept telling him that I've never played it, and then he brought it to school one day and gave me it and said, "I need you to play this game."
Oh,
So,
that's Louis to me right now.
yeah,
That was
so
me
he
with Metal Gear Solid in high school. Like I was like forcing my
basically,
friends to
yeah.
play that game.
And it'd already been out a while when I played it, and so it was one of those on the big double disc, cassette things. And so I took it home, and it was great. I mean, the graphic hasn't aged well, but I remember the world being so big, and so you could explore it and everything like that. And the fact that you could get on a little motorcycle and go down the road and everything, it was just one of these games that you'd never seen anything like it. And me and my friend, because we were used to do art and stuff back then, we'd make our own little Final Fantasy worlds. We'd make chocobos, and we would make all the little things and stuff, and so it was something you get very immersed in. So the fact that they've remade it kind of warms my heart a little bit, because I'm not a big Final Fantasy fan, but the fact that they took a game that was they remade it, and it's a remake that deserves the name of a remake, because they took something that was dated and they've brought it to the new age, and they've done a faithful remake, and you can tell what it is, you can see what it is. And I'm just happy that they've taken these games, because so many games need to be remade because they're so good, but they're so dated. So for me, I'm not a huge Final Fantasy fan, but I respect the remake because it looks gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
it is ridiculously gorgeous.
It's got me so excited for 16.
The polygons to that, I'm like,
yeah, right, yeah. That's how I feel.
I was playing a little Final Fantasy 7 remake the other night because I still haven't beaten it, and I was like, I want to get like my brain refreshed for this conversation. And as I was playing it, I'm going through the section where it's like you're just running down a tunnel, fight a guy, tunnel, and I'm like, wow, this is awfully linear. And then I'm like, that's what people shat on Final Fantasy 13 for being linear, and I love Final Fantasy 13.
You become your own enemy.
Yeah, but I know I never cared that Final Fantasy 13 was linear. I never cared. It didn't bother me.
No,
and it
but
doesn't bother me with
7.
But it bothers me that so many people like gave Final Fantasy 13 crap because it was linear, when Final Fantasy 7 is very linear.
And I just want to piggyback on that. That was what I liked about 13. I liked the linear story because there's so much,
and it moves fast.
When you're forced to like finally go out to the open world part, I was like, no, give me this, because there's so much. I want to be right here.
The Final Fantasy 13's
like
credit is the story moved at a really brisk pace because it was linear, and it's like you got all these amazing, beautiful cutscenes, like bang, 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 bang. And then if you play any other Final Fantasy game, you're wandering around aimlessly for 20 hours before you get a cutscene and know, oh, yeah, that's right. I had to talk to this person about that thing that I completely forgot about because I was too busy farming chocobos or whatever.
Yeah, I love open world. It's like my go-to, but like I will still follow the main story until it's over because that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And then I'll go and do some side quests when I want. Just, it's like, oh, I need a little break. But I love me a linear story.
Yeah, agreed.
Love it.
I learned about real open world from Fallout 3. I put 80 hours in that, and then my PlayStation got stolen.
No. It's always heartbreak and tears with you, Louis. Why?
Because nothing is ever happy. Life is terrible and chaos.
Life sucks and then you die.
Smile. Yeah, that's my my motto. I'm very.
That's my mother-in-law's motto.
I'm going to
vomit it into the floor anyway.
I wake up and I go, "Good morning, day. Let's have a great one. Hi, son." And then the day goes right between everything and just lifts me up.
For audio listeners, Louis is doing the great little pantomiming of like getting kicked in the nuts by the world.
Yeah,
by the day, just
crazy
existence. Everything sucks. Anyway, hi, I'm Louis. Let's play a game together.
Just want to play with my friends.
Yeah.
So who here
is my Twitch?
I assume I know the answer, but who wants to actually play the new Final Fantasy 7 game when it comes out this winter?
Me.
I'm
kind of reluctant until they all come out, because I want to make sure they all come out. Because the problem is, I'll play the game and then I'll forget what the fuck I just played when the next one comes out, and then I'll just like, there's too much of a space because they take so long. I think that's the problem with me with like Lord of the Rings movies when they came out like with so much gap between. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck happened. So
Even though they all filmed them like straight in a row.
yeah, I would rather have the whole collection and then play them.
That's why I was worried that it was gonna be 7 games.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
because I was like, I was gonna have to do all of them again to remember what happens at the end because they're changing so much. So now it's like 3. I'm like, oh, I can do that.
I would rather.
I have a short attention span, so if I'm into a game, I have these short bursts of I'm really into this, and then I want to play all of them. That's why I did the Uncharted collection.
I can't do that because I worry that it's gonna get spoiled for me before I get the chance to play it. So I'd rather have this space of time between this and the next one to minimize the risk of like casually seeing a spoiler, and I'm like, well, now I don't want to play it because now the excitement's gone.
I just had a thought, and I think this would be great. I hope they're doing this. Louis, I'm sure you would appreciate this too. I really hope what Square Enix is doing is pulling a Matrix where they put the first game out and they're like, let's see how this does. And then when they saw how well it was received and they saw how well it performed sales-wise, they're like, okay, cool, move forward with the project. And what they're doing is they're developing and making all of the new games at the same time. So they have Rebirth ready, but maybe they have the third one already ready for like a year later to have it like a staggered release where like, here's Rebirth. And then guess what? Here's part 3 next year. I think that would be phenomenal and like really big on Square Enix's part because they've been kind of rough with some of their releases lately.
Okay, I'm gonna corroborate that. Like, if you look at it, knowing the game like we do, that we played it, you know how big it is. You know how small where they left off was. So there's like the first 10% is this first game, and you're telling me you're gonna fit all this into 2 more games? Like, no. You guys did something. You did something. You're just not telling us because it's only been 2 years when you said it's going to be once every 5 years and there's going to be 82 of them. And they're like, nah, we're only going to have 2 more and it's coming out next year. And then who knows what's going to happen with the other one. I think they were working on it the whole time. I think that you're right. They were checking to see where it was going to go. But when they saw how well it went, they threw all their developers into it. They went, all right, everybody, we have the plan. We know exactly what we're going to do. It did well, put all the money, all the backing into this one. And I think you're right. I think we're going to see a Rebirth and then maybe a year before the next one.
I think that would be the smartest move for them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because especially what Maria is talking about, like those of us who know the game, we know what to expect. So now it's like, how are you going to do all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am so fucking down. Yes, please, Square, don't screw me again like you did with 15.
Yeah. I'm really hoping. I don't understand. I'm sure that's a big legal thing going on, but I don't get why Final Fantasy VII is locked into PlayStation now. And but Square isn't dedicated to PlayStation. Like all their other games are coming out on every other platform. They're making another Final Fantasy VII game on Xbox and Nintendo and everything. So it's like, but what if you play Crisis Core on Switch and you're like, I want to play more Final Fantasy VII? You can't. Yeah, and then like you, Louis, you have to get a PS5 now if you want to play the next Final Fantasy game, or you wait another year for it to come out on PC, which hopefully that's not the case either.
Will. Yeah, that's what's weird.
And that to me is one of the worst sides of like the console exclusivity deals. Like, oh man, you're boning so many people
out of a good game
for what? Like, what advantage really is there? But
I mean, I guess that the console wars used to be about getting those, because there wasn't that much. You got 1 or 2 games on either platform, so you could afford getting a whole new system for it. Now it's just trying to get the rights, I think. Now it's really just trying to be like, no, we're exclusive. And it's like, we don't care anymore. Just give it to everybody. Let me choose what system I want to play it on, but you supply the material. I just like, it's like, I want to eat whatever slice of pizza I want on whatever plate I want. I don't want to have to, no, this plate is better because it's thicker. Like, I don't understand. What are you doing to me? Too many
Yeah,
choices.
I mean, when it comes to first party, I'm fine with exclusivity. That's the whole point of first party. When it comes to a third party like Square Enix, it's like, can you figure out what you're doing here? And then the contrary, I was just thinking of to that has slipped my brain, but I was thinking about the Atlas. Now the Atlas is coming back to Xbox, so we're getting Atlas games coming to Xbox now. We're gonna finally have Persona 3, Persona 4, Persona 5, which like people have been like, why? Why don't we have these?
Microsoft should just buy Sony. Like,
No,
just
I don't agree with that at all. Even if that's just a
No.
joke, I don't agree with that.
it is just a joke. I
That
promise.
is a
It's just a joke.
hard no. Do not do that.
I don't want them
Look
to
what
do
you
that, but it's
started.
just a joke.
We need
Yeah.
that competition.
Even if you're
The
just doing a
rivalry.
hot take, even if you're just trying to poke the bear, I'm gonna say a hard no. Don't do
That-
that.
I agree. I don't want them to merge. I just thought it would be funny.
That was the same reaction as when people say, "Why doesn't Disney just buy WB
No.
or
Don't.
DC? Why not?" Like, no, please.
Well, that's
Don't
why
do
so many
that.
people had an adverse reaction to like Microsoft buying Activision.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a certain degree level. Like Microsoft is a whole corporation, whereas Activision is just a publisher.
Mhm.
There's some differences there, but we're not going to get into that now. I think we've pretty much covered everything we were going to talk about tonight. We've got Louis'
Yeah.
excitement for Final Fantasy VII,
So cute.
my excitement for Dragon's Dogma 2. I think we're all got our varying levels of interest with The Last of Us Part 1.
Hype.
I want to play it. I want to make content around it. I want to do a comparison video, but I do not want to spend $70 on that game when it comes out. So I'm hoping I
Well,
don't have to.
if you have a PS5, I can probably game share it with you because I'll buy it.
Mm. Okay, fair.
Now I need a
With
PS5.
that, Louis will get you a PS5 one of these days.
We'll make it happen.
We'll find one in the wild and catch it
It's
like
sending in
Pokemon.
my computer. It's the beast, and it's dead already.
We shouldn't send you anything, Louis, because you just keep destroying
You just
things.
break it.
And that's who I have my own little beautiful raised platform that I put there so that it could be away from everything, so it's nice in its own little area. And
Have you signed
Nah.
up for the Microsoft PS5? Like, hey, let me know when it's my turn to get one.
no, because I don't have money yet, but that's
Oh, that's a
gonna be
good point.
changing
But
soon.
definitely sign up for that. It took us. We got ours.
All right, I'm going to cut this little tangent off.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Because we're going to wrap up the
Do
show.
that. It'll take.
This
a few
can be
months.
saved for after the show, which we're looking at doing potential after shows, but not yet.
That'd
We're
be
getting there. That reminds me, I wanted to put it out there again. If anyone is interested in helping us out or contributing to what the future of the show is, what the new show is going to be, feel free to message me or on Twitter through DMs, or you can email the podcast at thereplayerpodcast.com. Leave us those comments, those suggestions. Send us in ideas or topics that you want us to talk about on the show. And you can also make sure to follow any of us on Twitter, especially the show, please. And thank you, because we need all that support. The more support we get, the better our content becomes. All of us here would really appreciate it. So with that, I'm your host, Dan Morris. With me, I've got Louis, I've got Erica, I've got Maria. Thank you all for your wonderful conversations and discussions tonight. Louis, we're going to fight out in the back street about remakes after this.
Yeah, we are.
But that's game over,
Hey.
folks, and we'll see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. So long.
I have hair, I promise.